Hello, good evening, everybody. This is David Cuartillas transmitting live from Mexico City. I am at the Hacedores MakeSpace in the absolute center of Mexico at Zócalo. I'm here with Antonio Quirarte. Here you have him. Antonio is the mastermind behind the Hacedores community. And we're going to talk to him today a little bit about the maker culture in Mexico City, how things are working around here, and well, about this make space. Let me just steal the camera from Antonio for a second. I will just show you around, and this is a really beautiful place where everything is extremely clean, not like my makerspace. And there's an office in the back that you can see. People meet there for all sorts of kind of meetings and stuff. And out there is you can see because of the light, but it's Mexico City's cathedral, which is a famous cathedral that is always sinking. So let's just introduce Antonio. Antonio, first tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you come from? I mean, how do you ended up in the Hacedores community?
Okay, thank you, David. First of all, it's a great pleasure to have you here.
This way.
This way. Okay, thank you.
Studio microphone.
Perfect. So, I was always involved in technical stuff. I love the innovation, and my roots come from the internet dial-up services since 20 years ago. And when I was young, I used to make stuff with my hands. I love electronics. I learned something by myself. Now with the maker movement was something I was engaged very soon, very easy for me. So I started Hacedores as a blog, just to publish some information that could be of interest for other persons in the Spanish-speaking world. And fortunately, it has grown very fast and very big here in Mexico.
So you say you started as a blog. So I'm really curious because I'm always curious about how people get started. Like when you started a blog, were you emulating the maker? Because Hacedor, just to make it clear, Hacedor means maker in Spanish. And so were you emulating the Make Magazine kind of thing? Were you translating articles? So which was your first approach?
Both. We were translating some English articles that we find in the magazines or on other websites, and creating our own content as well. Covering some, being present in some events that basically mainly for artists. You know, the artists. I used to watch very close all the artists because they are the first persons. Maybe not just in Mexico, to be real makers, to use technology for another interest more than companies or industrial goals. But so we used to go to we go to these events and make some coverage for the blog.
Okay, so because I'm not exactly sure, but I think I remember meeting you at a campus party event many years ago and discussing about this, making the content and so on. And then the next time I met you, you actually had a hackerspace kind of thing going on, and that's a really big change. Going from, I would say, a blog is almost a more theoretical approach. There's a theory, it could work, to a really practical thing, like having people, having members to pay a fee, join the place, buy machines, rent the place. I mean, this place, I don't know if it's expensive or not, but it's an absolute city center, so it's not anywhere in Mexico City, And was it an easy transition to go from making the blog? Was there a lot of people listening to you? It's how did the community react? And then we will go later on to talk about the Mexican community, which actually is very active and I think it's very nice. So the first question is, how do you gather people? How do you start?
Well, some kind was some kind of easy because we started the blog and the social networks, and we start organizing the first Arduino Day in Mexico, and as you maybe know, a lot of people came to this event. It was huge, so that was our main reason to make this space, because all the people identify by itself as a maker. You know, in the Arduino day, everybody was there and asking, "What is this? What is this about the maker movement?" Also, I'm a maker too. Yes, everybody is a maker, and after that event, everybody remain asking, "Well, what's next? Where can we gather together and make stuff?" So the necessity for this space was a must. So in some particular case, well, this space came to serve for this necessity. As you already said, this place is in the heart of the Mexico City, and the reason it is here is mainly because in all these streets you have around, you can find almost any stuff you need, from an Arduino here, 2 blocks from here, to some fabrics, plastics, or woods, or chemicals. Anything you need, almost you can find it here, just a walking distance from this space, this place, and it's very communicated with a lot of transportation means.
Well, actually, the subway like ends just behind the cathedral, right? Like the main station. So so then the next questions are actually about the Mexican community. Yesterday we were at this event, the Talent Land, and if you watch the LiveCast number 4 that we published yesterday, you will see a lot of people from a lot of places in Mexico. And actually Antonio was there as well, but he had to return yesterday earlier, so he was also at the event, because actually Hacedores was the one that was coordinating everybody, right? So you guys were the ones that getting the sponsorships and making sure that everybody were making workshops. So again, watch LiveCast number 4 to get more information about it. But then I think nobody really managed to explain. They said, yeah, we made these T-shirts and then we met and then. But I think that you, as the kind of like the founding father in a way of the movement, can probably tell us your version of like how everything started. So when did suddenly Inventors House show up? You know, because also they are quite young guys, right? In general, like Sabas and so on. These guys are pretty young. Or what happens in Monterrey? Or is it people from the university? Or so? Can you please tell us a bit about your view on the history of the maker movement in Mexico?
Sure. Yes, that's right. Actually, Inventors House started before than Hacedores, and was as 330 homes in the south of the city. They are started as just a few months before us as well, and just was a simple matter of time. So many people could start making their own spaces. Now in all the country, maybe I could say that there should be at least one makerspace or hackerspace in one of each of the states in Mexico City, and another area where it's growing so fast, the maker movement, is in the education space. So in my calculation should be around 120 schools with a makerspace or maker classroom in the school. So that's another area where the maker movement is growing so fast.
Okay, I'm happy you brought this up. So you're basically talking about like education seems to be a place where things are happening, and I wanted to come to this question later, but since you brought it up now, I think it's good, because one of the things that's complex is actually to run a place like this. You know, get people to understand or to feel the need of having a place like this, and then start paying a membership. And one might think that a city like Mexico, where like over 20 million people, over 25 million people, you will have enough people to run these places as paid places, right? But we know that's not the fact.
Yeah.
So you guys have to figure out a different mechanism to make it sustainable. And I know that you guys have been helping building some of these make spaces at schools and so on. So can you tell us a bit of how that happened? Like, did you actually approach them, or did they approach you and so? Because I think this will help people in other countries as well, try to figure out how to make their life vision and their wish to become actually a profession.
Yeah. Well, actually, as long as I know, a makerspace is not a good business to run. There is no enough
continuity with the membership. So people who came or come to the makerspace to make a project, they just leave when they finish the project. You can have it for a long time, paying the space because maybe they don't need it anymore. So one of the means that helps to run the place is giving workshops, courses, and asking your question, what about these schools, how it works. This space was the inspiration for the first maker spaces in many schools. So we didn't expect it, but a lot of teachers come here, and this space works as a showroom, you know. So this is the a live example of what they sometimes they visualize or they dream in the school. So they come here and see this place, and they say, "Hey, this is just as I imagine a classroom in my school. So please let me bring my director and take pictures and video to just let the people in my school know that this exists." So it works more like a showroom for this school, you know.
Okay, so in a way you need to keep it running because then they come here and then they like it and they think like, this could be really good, so we could have this or we could have that, and then you help them building it up, and that's a way for you to become sustainable. Okay, so by looking around, like when you look in that direction, for example, you see there, well, I have to change camera, sorry for this, I was just like, you see there it says Projectile on that wall, and Projectile is one of the make spaces in the city of Mexico, right? Can you tell you the relationship, because you actually have a really healthy relationship between the different make spaces, and I think one might think like you are competing against the same audience, but in a way, since you're aware that the audience is not the way that makes it sustainable, then you are not competing, right? So can you tell us about the different make spaces in Mexico City and how you guys relate to each other?
Sure. Yes. Well. Yes, as you already said, we are very together in the community. We help together. We help each other in many projects. Actually, Projectile, they made the 3D printers you already see here, and they give some. They give some workshops. Actually, we link them to another schools or customers who needs these workshops in their schools or companies. And with 330 ohms, 330 ohms in the south of Mexico, we have also a commercial relation with they are a very good store for maker stuff. So with another maker spaces in the city, we collaborate very close in some courses we already design and make. So it's very easy for us to work together and share many things, as you already saw yesterday and these previous days in Guadalajara. We have the Maker Manifesto very printed in our skin, really.
So I wanted to ask, because I opened here your website. So it's a website that Gustavo Reina, one of the most prominent members of the maker community. So he linked to the site, and so here you can see this is the streets in the absolute city center of Mexico. So if you are in the maker movement and you come to visit Mexico, don't only visit the pyramids, visit the Hacedores MakerSpace. I will post in the chat later some of the pictures I took. I mean, this place we are at is actually very interesting because it's in a passage, in a gallery where there's a lot of religious shops. You can buy like saints and crosses and all sorts of like religious things. And in the fourth floor, here is the Hacedores MakeSpace. So if you guys come, just go into the elevator in the first floor and give the guy 5 pesos and tell him to drive you to the fourth floor.
So he can try.
Yeah. So you don't. Yeah, exactly. So it's a super nice, also like old school elevator. So but Gustavo was saying that you guys have like a 3D view of the space.
It's in the Google Maps.
It's in Google Maps. Okay.
Find for Hacedores.
Yeah. If you take the microphone and you tell.
If you open Google Maps, you can find for search for Hacedores MakerSpace. There is. and there you can find the 330 just to the left and down, whether the pictures are. Then you have the. Actually, it's a few years ago that picture, so you are going to see it more more clean. And yeah, but yeah, here you. That's what now click. Yeah. Okay, so you can walk around the place. Okay.
So we're sitting just down here right now.
Yeah.
Glasses in the back.
Yeah, we are in the back of the place.
So I always like to ask this question before we go into any other kind of questions. How is the gender distribution in the maker culture in Mexico? Because I've been to a lot of events, and actually I've seen a fair amount of girls. So what I would like to know, in your perspective, like, you know, is it balanced? Because there's always these reports about like there's always more men than women and so on, and if so, and if not, I would like to I would like to hear about your opinion on why this happens.
Yeah. Well, in the makerspace, it's very notorious that it's still men. The men is the majority in quantity of girls. Here comes a lot of people from students from universities in engineers or scientific careers. So mainly it's dominated by males. But what I can see, and it's very clear, is that in the schools where we are making these maker spaces, the girls are the first who are very interested in making some stuff. So I have a lot of faith to expect in the new generation a lot of girls coming to the making spaces, to the making area. I'm pretty sure that maybe in 5 years this is going to be at least 50-50, and pretty sure that they are going to be majority in a few years.
It's good. We have Gustavo there. Gustavo is a teacher at school, right? So probably Gustavo, you can give us your insight on this as well. So yeah, he says another makespace is Colegio Hebreo Maguen or Maguen. So I think this is the one that you guys built.
The first one in Latin America.
Is this the one that is famous for being the most expensive makespace in the school world? Please tell us a bit about it. I mean, you don't need to enter into details about how it's financed or anything. We just to inspire all people to understand that this is actually a good investment.
Yes, this was the first makerspace in a college in Latin America. We have the fortune to help them to build this space. Was very inspired by this place we are now. So the director, Lila Pinto, is a very passionate and very innovative person who wanted to disrupt the education, and they are making a great job because they started reforming all the library. So one large space is dedicated to this makerspace. Actually, they have 3 makerspaces in the same campus. One is for secondary and how you say high school, yeah. Well, I mean middle and high school. Another one for primary, basic school, and the other one is for preschool or kinder. So all the school is transforming into a mindset of making and the maker movement. So and they started as well this spark for another schools all around to just hang up on this.
Okay. So more people are joining. I know that right now our friends that were actually following the La Hora Maker livecast in Spanish directly from Madrid or live from Madrid. We're talking about Fab Labs. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask, and I will just moderate. So don't be shy. If you ask a question that it was already asked, I will not tell you. I will just respect you very nicely. I will fade away into the next question. But it's really nice because actually this week I managed to come to Mexico and visit both Guadalajara, which is a place, Jalisco, a region where there's been a lot of money invested in education, and maybe you can tell us more about it in a second. And now we're in Mexico City, and before we started the LiveCast, Antonio and I were talking about the expenditure in education in every region, and how it works here very much on a state basis. Like Mexico is in a state, Estado de Mexico is another one, Jalisco is another one, right? For example, the event that we're visiting in Guadalajara, that you can see in LiveCast number 4, is actually entirely financed by the government. There's some marketing put in there, but the money paid by sponsors doesn't pay for that, right? And they have invested about 120 million pesos in education, in building robotics classes all the way from primary to pre-university. So, what is the temperature of this, like in Mexico City? Like here, how is the impression? How is it working with education? Is the government very much onto it, like it is in Jalisco, or is there like a bigger plan? Like in Jalisco, they were telling me there is like a bigger plan around innovation and so on. And then, which is the role? Is the important question that the maker culture plays in that conversation. Do you guys have like political conversations to try to influence what's going on and so on? I think this is very relevant. If you can tell us some about it.
Yeah, well, I can tell I have visited another states. For sure, the another states are moving just quickly than the here in the Mexico City in terms of public education. What can we see here in Mexico City is the private education is moving very fast in this direction, and we have worked as well with public education in another activities. I'm very closely with a organization that is very friend of us called Jacaranda Education. We work together in many projects for public education. So we are talking basically with the directors of the schools, not top high, but maybe in the middle of this education for the public spaces. This is also a very difficult time for education in Mexico because it's starting a new revolution or new reform in the laws of the education. So now the public schools are going to be more independent in making and using their own expenditure for all the classes and equipment that they want to have. So we don't besides talking with the top directors of the education in Mexico, we also need to speak with the directors of each school. So it's going to be very interesting times for the education in Mexico. Let's see what happens.
So basically, what you're saying is that we're moving into a more, what's a liberal,
decentralized education in Mexico is coming.
So this is going to be a big challenge because if you have a more centralized system, you can ensure a certain level of equality and standards, right? So you have to put a lot of ethics into play in order to create things that are, valid, relevant, meaningful. There is a lot of these kind of questions that need to be answered, especially when you deal with education. Yeah. Okay, so I'm passionate about education, so I could talk about this for hours. I don't want to bother you too much with it. So let's talk about the fun stuff. So Antonio here, he's arranging Arduino that he said. I mean, I came to an Arduino day. It was insane. I made a lecture for like 500 people, and I was signing autograms for 2 hours afterwards to like old ladies and 9-year-old kids and everything in between. So I think there is it feels like there is a lot of people here that are very interested in whatever cultural event is happening around the idea of making, right? And there's a culture in Mexico of fixing stuff, which doesn't exist in Europe, by the way. So I think it's very interesting to see how it works. So in this regard, so can you tell us about like let's say nice, crazy, interesting kind of projects that have been built here that you would like to, like, who would you give kudos from your community here to say, hey guys, you made a great project? And because I would like to also follow up on that later, maybe.
Yeah. Well, actually, I saw a project that I like it so much in the talent network yesterday or previous day. The Joel, it's a guy from Oaxaca who built a network for tracking animals or fauna in the wild. So he used an Arduino, a GPS, and XB communication network, so all the animals can communicate and save or transmit their position in while they are walking through the wild, and this could serve for how impact could have a new construction for a new freeway or something like that. A lot of projects have been built here. That question is always a surprise for me, but I don't know. Maybe you can see we some guys from Mexico University are building an electric car right now. Well, they just be yeah. A lot of schools come here to build their weather station. For example, we have built a network for receiving data from this station. This is called RedMet. You can get RedMet in español. RedMet, like red. Yeah. Redmet.org. Yeah.
So basically, you say this is your own network
Yeah.
to map weather stations that students are building here in Mexico.
That's right. That's right. As you can see, we have 44 stations in all the country with weather stations that the kids build by themselves. So they are using an Arduino Mega to receive all data from sensors and reporting here in this website.
It's actually super interesting because this is actually something that has been discussed left and right all the time. Like, does it make sense that I build a weather station with my students? Only to some extent, because weather information only makes sense when you compare it with another places. So how open is this platform for other people to use? How does it work?
Not only the platform. Please, can you get into this another address? It's called meteorito.mx. Okay, this is a course we designed with the support of U.S. Embassy and Jacaranda Education. This website you can find, if you can go up and then complete course, and you have here all the information down under. Excuse me, in the another one, curso completo. Okay, here. Each of these are for example, atmospheric pressure. You can find all the plan, all the class you, as a professor or as a father, you can teach to your kids. For example, are the building instructions for this instrument, and this is the physical part of the class. If you go up, please, you can find the digital as well, the digital experiment. So here's when we teach you how to measure the atmospheric pressure. Okay, you are getting all the knowledge for each of one of the physical phenomena in the atmosphere, and then at the end of the course, you go to curso completo again, and then to the bottom, to the weather station building. So here you can find all the instructions to build your own weather station and to connect it to the RedMet website to compare and to have the real-time data.
It's just fantastic. So basically, I could recommend teachers in Spain to take this one, and the only thing is that when they I mean, it's also, I think it's very ironic. Like suddenly you made a world map which centers Mexico. So if somebody was making a weather station in Cáceres, Spain, for example, when they came to the website, the first thing they will see is
We can change that.
yeah, no, well, no, I think it's very nice because we're actually also talking about the world, and for the first time, you actually get to see the well, yeah, probably from a use perspective, would be good to just make it find your own location and then eventually use that. But this is actually really good because then let me just go back to it because I'm actually liking it a lot. So it's the browser here. So here you see. So one thing is that is just to summarize for those of you that are watching. This is the red mat is the website that maps the information. It's like an old school patchway that existed in the past, and gets the data and puts it here. And then Meteorito is the website that explains you not just how to mount a weather station, but what you need to learn to understand how the weather station works. And that's very relevant. And here you see some archive of workshops you guys have been making, right? Like with different kids and schools and so on. So this is very, very relevant. So how many schools you said have been publishing? 42 is the.
Yeah, 44. Actually, this is in Cozumel, Caribbean.
One in 42 in the center of the country, and one in Monterrey, and another one in Cozumel, in the Caribbean. It's a very nice place indeed.
So I'm really curious. I want to check the temperature in one of these in the center of Mexico. You have your own running or not? It's not.
It's the one who brings
The spares parts
to fix the other ones.
Okay, so I will just open one randomly here, and so basically, this gives us the the information geolocalized somewhere. So there you go. Okay, but then if I want to check stuff, I need to log in actually, right?
No, it's you go up here
Ah, okay.
all
All the stations. Ah, okay. So because I was trying to click on the map.
okay, yeah. We need to.
Okay, but also this week is actually there's no matrix. Probably if they're at schools this week, probably they will be off because it's vacation here. Okay.
This is one of the
Yeah, let me change to this one, and you can show it on the camera.
the rest of one of our station because sometimes the students come here to find parts they need. So
This is what the station we use to the spare parts to build or fix another.
So you designed this part here as well, right?
Yeah.
So this is
This is the I don't know how to say pluviometer, rain meter, for to meter the kind of the amount of water raining. So
and the base is made of concrete.
yeah, but it doesn't work. We need to put it in another more heavy concrete cases.
Okay. So let's just see, because of course, as usual,
oh yeah.
Gustavo is always counterattacking. You do anything and Gustavo has something to say. This is fantastic. I think Gustavo should be paid by United Nations just to be in every education podcast. So he says, so Gustavo said a couple of things in the podcast. First, on the topic of being known, being from Mexico, he says that he's more known because abroad than in the country. So I think we have that problem, all of us. He says that he's more known because of his projects in Hackster and Microbit, but then he can't influence the politicians in his own region.
No, Gustavo is very, very well known in the maker community. Hola Gustavo. And yes, we have a copy of his first child, this board he made for Let's Control. Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, if you guys have any more questions, I think you should just post the questions in the chat, because I think that we will slowly be approaching the end of the podcast. So as I said, we are today in Mexico City. For those of you that came late, and you might wonder where in the world am I today? I feel like Carmen Sandiego, the old computer game, or Finding Wally. It's like only I don't have striped T-shirts because it looked really fat on them. But so we are at the Hacedores MakerSpace in the center of the city. And just talking about the future, I think you have the plan of moving away from here because you want to have a place where parents can drive in and here it's impossible to park, right?
One inconvenience for this place is I we are in the center of the city, but we are very far from another places as well. You know, come to the center of this city is very complicated because a lot of traffic and amounts, millions of people walking on the streets. So many people, many parents and schools would like to be here more often. So it's very complicated for them to come here to the center of the city. So we are now looking for another place that can we where we can have more people working as well, mainly students and kids.
So you have the classic plan of like approaching universities and eventually, or it's more like you want to approach schools where they can afford the make space and they could use your make space as a substitute.
There's a huge necessity for the parents to look for alternative places where the kids can learn all the new stuff they are watching in YouTube even. You know, there is a lot of do-it-yourself videos that most of the kids, I mean, primary or middle school are watching, and they want to make the stuff. This is something great, and the parents of these kids come to this place and say, "Oh, this is what I would like to do for my kid, or or to make with them." So we are approaching more to this kind of market, if we can call it like that, because we can see a more necessity in this area for the parents and kids. Of course, we are going to be always open to university and seniors to come to this place, but we need a more kids friendly space. That's it.
I would say this place is quite kids friendly. Haven't seen too many power tools around. so, so just well, we've been talking for quite a while now. I mean, I have to be honest. I'm trying to run out of questions to ask, which I think is good because that means that we managed to talk a lot of the things we wanted to talk about. But we spoke already about like which is your relationship between Mexican makers, and we saw that you are actually a quite strong community of people, that you managed to actually influence things and get some like budgets for making events and stuff like this, which I think is very relevant. But then the next question, plans of collaborating, because for example here in the call we have Cesar that has been running this collaboration between Italian and Spanish makers, getting funded by the Italian embassy. So have you guys considered that kind of idea in some way?
Yeah, actually, let me give a huge and nice announcement. Can we have the handbook? This is a premiere in maybe in your program. Maybe you should start the drums rolling. Well, we started our first collaboration with Make Magazine. This is the first collaboration with them. Gracias. This is the first edition in Spanish we made for this. This is the original, how to use a breadboard handbook. Okay, and this is the Spanish version that we are going to be releasing in a few days. So our goal is to spread this handbook to the Spanish-speaking world, not just or not only in Mexico. We have made all the translation, a lot of revisions, design, and the printing. Actually, it's now in the oven. It's printing. It's being printed now. It's a very very nice handbook where you can learn by yourself the electronics basics, how to read a diagram and that stuff. You can have it with a kit, the electronics kit, or just the book, and it's going to be extremely cheap. This is one of our intentions in everything we do and we make, is to make it very easy for people to get it.
First of all, congratulations. I think it's great. You know, I'm a strong defender. I've always talked to Dale Doherty about like you should actually figure out a way to publish in Spanish. It's the second language in the world of education, and it's like super important. I'm actually really excited. I mean, I saw it. I want to get a copy. So as soon as you have it printed, I totally want a copy. Then the question here is like, how do you plan to spread? Because I think the initiative that the guys at the inventors house, the making the hackerspace passport in Spanish.
Yeah.
I think that was a really good initiative, like kickstarted so that people could actually get it. How do you plan to spread this one in the Spanish-speaking world? Like, are you gonna crowdfund it, or are you going to basically print a lot and try to sell them? Which is your approach?
It is really it is ready to sell them. So we have a very low prices for wholesale. So if you are in another country and would like to distribute this in your country, well, you just write us and you can have it. This also for schools as well. So as a professor, it's going to be very helpful for your even makerspace as small or as large as it is. So this is a very nice practical book.
And just the question is like, do you know in how many languages has been produced so far? Is this the first translation?
This is the first translation. Actually, I already saw a few years, maybe 3 years ago, 3 books from Make editorial in Spanish, but from an Spanish editorial, but they were so expensive that it was not a good option. So this is going to cost almost $5 to get.
Okay, I officially applied to get 10 of those. I always buy 10 to get to friends and family, and I will try to figure out if we can distribute that thing somehow.
Okay.
So yeah, I think at this point, I think we are on a high note. Well, Tom says that he's working with a home automation with Arduino project that he will present at Arduino Day. So let me remind you that it's Arduino Day. Gustavo says that Hacedores will have their badge. They deserve it. I guess, Gustavo, you're already designing it. And then we have Laura Maker, which is Cesar. They send a question. I feel like you met the maker community, but I haven't seen anyone coming from the Fab Lab background. Which is the relationship between these two communities? Because obviously in Spain or in Europe in general, this big mix up, and we're always talking about it. Like, is it a Fab Lab? Is it a makerspace, a hackerspace? So just to answer the question from Cesar, which is the relationship between the official Fab Lab network and the makerspace community in Mexico? Who is the strongest?
No, well, we are very close friends as well. So even in Talent was now there is people from the Fab Labs there. So maybe here is not as clear the division from a makerspace community and the makerspaces. So you can go to another city, another state in Mexico, you can find a Fab Lab, but we know each other and we work as maybe the same stuff. Even we can have some workshops in different places from a makerspace or Fab Lab. Fortunately, we don't have any issues or strong tags with this division of names. So in Mexico, it's not thanks to the community that is working too close. Maybe this division is not so hard. But yes, the Fab Labs they work as a network, as well they used to be. They should be, and they work very fine as well. They Fab Labs are mainly in the universities here in Mexico. So universities are the ones who build these places.
So as an interesting reflection, I think Cesar is probably asking or writing another question, which I think is relevant. Cesar is also responsible of like the Makespace and Fab Lab Association in Spain. So it's like it's a bit different from other places where people are like joined together in a way. But I think it's very relevant what you said. It's like Fab Labs take care of the high education students, and Makespace takes care of the secondary primary education students. So you kind of like cut the cheese in a nice way. So if you guys have any other questions, I think it's a time to formulate it. So okay, that's which is the strongest. That's David's own Hunger Game version. Yeah, I like to like we're live. I like to like have like a punchline, like which is the strongest. That's always cool. And and Gustavo says, okay, when I have the money, I will make a no Fab Lab for the people. Yeah, so there is lots of discussions about this. When I went to Maker Fair Cairo, actually, I had a conversation with Wendy from the Fab Lab Network, and I was under the impression that to be a Fab Lab, you needed to have a lot of money. And she said, like, no, you don't need to. I said, but you don't need to have like all of these machines to be certified Fab Lab. And she was like, yeah, it's not exactly like that. People misunderstand it. And I was like, well, I'm not really sure anymore. I mean, so I want to thank Antonio very much.
Thank you so much, David. It's an honor to be that you be here with us as well.
Well, actually, the honor is mine. I mean, I'm actually like about 100 meters away from when I started my life in Mexico. It was at the Centro Cultural de España. It is like next door. So I started here in 2007, where I ran a workshop, the first Arduino workshop in Mexico ever. And when you walk down the street down there, when you walk to like the Plaza de la Computación, which is the place where you buy electronics, now you walk down there and they scream on the speakers, Arduino boards, sensors, motors. So it's insane. So it's like, things have changed a lot in the last 11 years here, and I think it's fantastic. And I have a very close relationship to Mexico and to Antonio in this case. So thank you very much for having me here.
Thanks so much.
Thanks everybody in the back. Woo! You know, this is a funny thing. When we make programs in Mexico, there's always people around, so it's kind of funny. Okay, so with this, we say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for being here today. And if you liked our livecast, please subscribe to to the Arduino channel and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and follow us in our road to hell. Thank you very much and see you soon. Bye.